Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I am your host Nick, and we are picking up right where we left off in the last episode, talking about the 10 best and worst designated player signings in MLS history, according to a recent ESPN.com article. And then we are going to look ahead at the Chicago Fire's next matchup, an August 9th matchup in Bridgeview, due to the Bears being in Soldier Field this weekend. They will take on Western Conference foe LAFC, who may or may not have their new record signing, Heung-min's son, Son Heung-min, from Tottenham Hotspur, the Korean star there. First off, though, want to say thank you to Skira Icelandic Spring Water for being a sponsor of the show, for always supporting us, for helping us out with our featured guest segment when John Donovan calls in and sends in his takes on all things Chicago Fire. John, we're thinking about you. Haven't heard from you in a few weeks, so please send us your thoughts on all things Chicago Fire, especially with a marquee matchup coming this weekend. Yep, I think the LAFC match, let me check my little schedule here. Yeah, the LAFC match is considered a gold match on the Chicago Fire ticket pricing guide. So you had the diamond match against Inter Miami. You had gold matches being the home opener against DC, Charlotte, San Diego, and LAFC, and the remaining matches are all silver matches. So little more expensive ticket when the LA team comes to town, that's for sure. But we're going to talk about them in a little bit more detail in a bit. Let's talk about the top 10 and bottom 10 designated players in MLS history. This is an article posted a couple weeks ago, July 27th, by Ryan Rosenblatt at ESPN.com. And he begins his analysis of these players saying that it's been 18 years since MLS introduced the designated player rule. Originally a workaround so it could usher David Beckham to the LA Galaxy, it quickly became a bedrock of the league's roster rules. MLS could sign big-name stars who drove invest in exciting young players whom they could later transfer to European clubs, or make room for the game-breaking player who could win the MLS Cup. Some DPs have been sensational, altering the direction of clubs on and off the pitch, while others have been calamities, and he's very generous in calling them calamities, who have been the best and worst designated players. So great little setup there, talking about how the MLS built very much on parity, built very much with the memory of the failing NASL, wanting to keep costs under control, wanting to keep teams on a level playing field, figuratively and kind of literally at some point, but then introducing this designated player rule to bring in interest as well as to let owners spend when they want to. So here are the 10 best designated players according to ESPN. Starting at number 10, Clint Dempsey of the Seattle Sounders. Number 9, Zlatan Ibrahimovic of the LA Galaxy. Number 8, Landon Donovan of the LA Galaxy. Joseph Martinez for Atlanta United comes in at number 7. And Thierry Henry of the Red Bulls comes in at number 6. So there are your 6 through 10 best DPs. Henry, Joseph, Donovan, Ibrahimovic, and Dempsey. And if you want to read all there's a paragraph for each of these players. But really, if you think about it, man, if you really think about the modern DP and how you want them to be this flashy star who can still produce on the pitch, I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than Zlatan in that sense. Joseph was a little bit of an unknown when he first came into MLS and became that flashy star who, again, not flashy personality-wise, but flashy on the pitch, and then was able to back it up with his play. And then, unfortunately, after his knee injuries, things tailed off for him in 2020. But, oh my gosh, he's still 6th all-time in goals, with the best goals per appearance mark among any MLS player who has more than 100 goals. So he is still one of the top strikers, and for that reason, one of the top DPs in league history. You're going to notice a trend here, too, when we get into the top 5 of attacking talent, that the best DPs are attackers. And even the worst DPs, I think, are going to be more attackers because teams tend to have to buy goals, at the very least in MLS, if not across all clubs and leagues in the world. All right, here's your top 5 best DP signings of all time, according to ESPN and Ryan Rosenblatt. Number 5, Portland Timbers' Diego Valeri Number 4, and does this surprise you? He's at number 4, Inter Miami's Leo Messi. And the article says, how do you make this list despite having played just 2 years? Well, by scoring 40 goals and having 26 assists in only 46 MLS games. So he is absolutely one of the most productive players from the stat sheet's perspective in MLS history. Number 3, Carlos Vela, LAFC. Number 2, and I love this knot. I'm so glad he's where he is because it was so much fun watching him play. And if you know the history of me in Major League Soccer podcasting, you'll know on my old show, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, Soccer Central, Sons of a Pitch American Soccer Podcast. You know, we had a few different post names there, but it was Sons of a Pitch. It was my partner and I, Mike Guglielmi, and he is a huge TFC fan. He's from just outside of Toronto. So we're talking about Sebastian Giovinco, the Atomic Ant, as the number 2 best DP signing in MLS history. And of course, I mean, look at all the trophies he brought there. He even got himself back into the Italian national team picture for everything that he was doing in MLS, even when the Italian Federation and coach at that time were saying, like, no, you have to play in Italy or in a top 5 club in Europe if we're going to consider you. He worked his way back into that picture for how well he played at Toronto, despite coming from Juventus at 28 years old. And the number 1 greatest designated player signing in the history of the league has been deemed to be none other than Robbie Keane of the LA Galaxy. So that is 1, 2, 3 LA Galaxy players making the top 10 list. It's interesting that they don't have David Beckham here. I wonder if they look... I mean, even without Beckham on the list, like... he did... I'm trying to think how to say it. Even if they look purely at on-the-field influence, Beckham still won titles and trophies with the Galaxy. If they look at off-the-field influence and league influence, then, yeah, he created the designated player rule. So maybe that's why they took him out of the running, because it was pretty much his rule that allowed it to happen. But Robbie Keane comes in at number 1 on this list. And it says Keane joined a good Galaxy team that made the MLS Cup the year before and immediately catapulted it to another level. LA won 3 MLS Cups and a Supporters' Shield in 4 years, arguably the greatest stretch by any club in league history. And though those Galaxy teams had Beckham and Donovan, there's no doubt Keane was their best player. He won MVP in 2014 and left LA scoring 83 goals in 125 games, making a compelling case as the most impactful player in MLS history. So that is the top 10 list. Now, as fun as it was to kind of take a walk down memory lane and remember the good times, let's take a look on the flip side here. Who are the worst 10 signings in designated player Major League Soccer history here? At number 10, the aforementioned TFC's signing Mista, and that's all it says. His name is Mista, M-I-S-T-A. I don't even think I was watching MLS, but I definitely wasn't paying attention to Toronto, and definitely didn't remember a guy named Mista, and I would think that I would remember a guy named Mista. So there you go. Number 10, the 10th worst signing. Number 9, Mustafa Jarju, Vancouver Whitecaps. Joining the club, he was a Gambian international. And again, if you guys know all these names, kudos to you, because there's a few of them where I'm like, I had to go Google you and make sure you were in like my prime MLS watching time other than now. Number 8, Frank Rost, R-O-S-T, of the New York Red Bulls, a goalkeeper. So he is rooting my idea of teams are always going to be spending money on attacking players, but maybe that's part of the reason why he's one of the worst signings, because he was a keeper that could not hold his starting job. Number 7, worst signing, Danielson of FC Dallas. And great little blurb here. Danielson was once the world's most expensive player, so it seemed like a steal when Dallas got him for only $800,000. It turned out to be a mess, where they made a whole bunch of changes to their tactics and roster to build around him, and he only scored 1 goal, often looking like he wanted to be anywhere else but on the pitch. Well said in the article. Now here we are, our home team. The Chicago Fire come in with the 6th worst designated player signing in league history, Nery Castillo. And here's what it said. And I read this in the last episode, but it bears repeating because it's so well written and so bad from Neri's perspective. Castillo should have been the creme de la creme of DP signings. He was a Mexico international with phenomenal skill and goal-scoring ability and had proven himself in Europe. Best of all, he was only 26 years old, so the Fire thought they got a prime-aged superstar who would ignite the city's Mexican population and stamp their place locally as well in MLS. That's why they paid an eye-opening $2 million just on the initial loan fee. Instead, they got the heart of Castillo's decline as he played just 8 times for the Fire and didn't record a goal or an assist. He played 4 more years for 4 clubs before retiring, never wearing the Mexico shirt again. R.I.P. Neri Castillo's career and Chicago Fire's ambitions at that time. The 5th worst signing in MLS designated player history, Blaise Matuidi, Inter Miami. And the article says it's not Matuidi's fault he made this list. He wasn't technically a DP, but that was the problem. They broke the roster rules to get him on there. But also absolutely underperformed. Miami got all sorts of fines and sanctions. And they didn't get their ship right until they moved everything, moved mountains, moved salaries, moved players, and went all in on Messi. The 4th worst designated player signing, Innocent Amagara, San Jose Earthquakes. And it begins, for more than a year, they paid him $1 million to sit on the bench. So there you go. He was an unused sub in 29 consecutive games. So that just talks a little bit more about San Jose's front office struggles at time when they signed him. The 3rd worst signing, Rice Mboli of the Philadelphia Union. And again, another goalkeeper. The Union had Zach McMath and a young Andre Blake, went out and signed this guy as a DP spot. And then moving on to the 2nd worst signing. Oddly enough, it's LA Galaxy with Steven Gerrard's signing. He was signed in 2015 to launch a new era of excellence after Beckham's departure and Donovan's retirement, but at age of 35, he didn't seem interested in being a pro. He just kept jumping across the pond to do TV hits. When he played, he was slow and did rarely more than stand in place while the other 21 players moved around him. He scored 5 goals in 2 years as he led the Galaxy from class of the league to an also-ran. So again, some very descriptive words in this article. I'm really enjoying everything that's written here. But here we go. The number 1, the worst designated player signing in Major League Soccer history, Rafa Marquez, New York Red Bulls. And the article says, Marquez is arguably the greatest player to come out of CONCACAF, so Red Bulls were thrilled when they signed him at 31 years old after 7 years at Barcelona. It seemed like a coup. It turned into disaster. He immediately regretted his move to MLS, spent most of his time injured or suspended. When he played, he was petulant and slow, and even as the Red Bulls played well, he tanked them in consecutive postseasons by getting sent off and ushering the team out of the playoffs. By the end of 2013, New York paid him 7 figures to go away. So those are the 10 best and worst designated player signings in Major League Soccer history, according to ESPN.com. What do you think? Do you think anyone else should have been on either one of those lists? From a Chicago standpoint, Jairo Torres was a pretty disappointing designated player signing considering he came injured, he didn't score any goals or log an assist in his time in Major League Soccer. I think maybe he got an assist in like an Open Cup or Leagues Cup game, maybe? I think. But nothing in league play, nothing to justify what they paid him, that they used a young DP spot on him, and after 2 seasons immediately turned around and sent him back to Mexico. So Jairo Torres could make that worst list. Shaqiri, I think he's got a shout for worst list, probably an honorable mention on this article just because of his high profile, his high level of play overseas, the pedigree of clubs he's played for, the fact that he still went on to play in a World Cup with Switzerland while in Chicago, and then after leaving Chicago, goes and becomes the Swiss League Player of the Season with Basel. So clearly he just didn't care, and that was never really reined in. But, was that more of a product of Shaqiri or the product of the Fire organization and coaching at the time? I like to think it was a good mix of both. As far as like top signings, I mean, Cuauhtemoc Blanco could have gotten a shout for the top 10 list for how he made the Chicago Fire relevant again after their trophy runs. Not to mention reigniting the fan base, the local Mexican population, and all the stuff off the pitch, the interest that was generated in him. And of course, I think you can give Bastian Schweinsteiger a shout. His on-the-pitch performance, I don't think, was enough to really get him in consideration for the top 10 list. Part of that was because he came over as a midfielder, made his career as a midfielder, and then due to injuries and roster construction, ended up playing center back most of the time for the Chicago Fire. So just was not in his wheelhouse, and the team really didn't have anything else around him. So that is the DP analysis there. All right, it is halftime on the show. Let me just take a little bit of a stretch break here, kind of get the blood flowing as we get ready for our preview of the Chicago Fire against Western Conference opponent Los Angeles Football Club. The black and gold of LAFC are coming to town this weekend. They may or may not be bringing their new DP signing and league record incoming transfer fee, $26 million. Son Heung-min with them. He may be with them and traveling with the team, but he is still in the air if he's going to suit up for it. I don't know if he's going to have the legs for it after all that travel to get here. I don't know if his visa is going to go through, if his international work visa is going to go through in time for him to do that. So we'll keep an eye on that and see. But if he does get into the match, he is definitely going to have an impact. Someone of his caliber and quality and just experience playing at the highest level is going to really impact this game. Now, hopefully it doesn't turn into everyone waiting for him to do something like how Miami experienced with Messi early on. Like, come on, do something. And maybe even to a little extent what Chicago went through when they first signed Xherdan Shaqiri. Are they just waiting for him to make some magic happen? For LAFC, hopefully that's not the case and that they can integrate him and allow him to flourish with the team and to raise the level of the team instead of the team just looking at him to single-footedly win their games. But anyway, looking at LAFC, assuming Son's not going to play, let's get into it a bit here. LAFC currently sits 6th place in the Western Conference on 36 points. They have 10 wins, 6 losses, and 6 draws, but they do have a couple games in hand on a lot of teams around them. Actually, I think they have played the least amount of games in the Western Conference at 22. One other team has played 23 games. Every other team has played 24, 25. So a little bit of end season advantage going for LAFC there. They have scored 39 goals. They have allowed 28 for a plus 11 goal differential. Home record, not bad. 8 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws. But the away record, only 2 wins in 9 attempts. 2 wins, 3 losses, 4 draws. So that bodes well for the Chicago Fire. Now, looking at the LAFC playmakers here, we see that Denny Bouanga leads the team with 13 goals and 7 assists. Next on the list, it is, I'm trying to find the name, Nathan Ordaz with 5 goals, Jeremy Ebobisse with 3, Olivier Giroud with 3, not on the team anymore, and then you have David Martinez with 3 and a handful of players with 1 or 2 goals after that. Now, Martinez is coming off a great Leagues Cup performance, so we'll see how much time he is getting in this matchup against the Chicago Fire. Now, if you want to look at assist guys, it's Bouanga leading the way with 7 assists, tied with Mark Delgado, who's got 2 goals and 7 assists. Then it's Nathan Ordaz and a number of players. Nathan Ordaz with 4 assists, number of players with 1 and 2 assists after that. So the offense is really Denny Bouanga. That's who you're looking at. You want to look at key passes, guys who are being creative and setting up goals. Once again, Denny Bouanga leads the team with 37, and you have Mark Delgado with 28 and Ryan Hollingshead with 22. If you want to compare that to the Chicago Fire, let's pull up their stats and see where Fire players are in the key passing category. You got Zinkernagel at 47, Gutierrez at 35, Bamba at 34. So you have 3 Fire players you have 1 Fire player who is head and shoulders above the rest of LAFC when it comes to, I'll call it creativity, and the key passing, the pass that leads to the shot, the pass that leads to the goal, or the pass that leads to the assist, something like that. You've got Zingernagel head and shoulders above everybody on either squad there. And then you've got Guti, Bamba, and Kuipers 35, 34, 22, all ahead of the next couple of guys on LAFC. So the Chicago Fire definitely have been generating a lot more offense than LAFC has been based on those statistics there. I also went over to the website fbref.com, looked up Major League Soccer, highlighted the Fire and LAFC on their data tables here to also take a little bit more look at some advanced stats and to see how this match could unfold by the numbers at least. And then we'll see if it matches up with our eye test and what we've seen the club do lately. So if you want to look at some advanced numbers, the XG is usually the place to start. LA has an expected goals on the season of 37.7. So based on the statistical evaluation of how likely their shots are to go in, they should have scored about 38 goals, and in actuality, they've scored 39. So that's not a bad split there. The Chicago Fire, on the other hand, for comparison's sake, their expected XG on the season is 40. They've scored 45. So is there going to be a regression to the mean, or the Chicago Fire just outperforming the numbers when they play? Either one at this point. Now, if you want to look at some squad stats here, what's really impressive, what stands out about LAFC over the rest of the league is how they progress the ball. They have the third most progressive carries, which is dribbling the ball towards the opponent's goal at least 10 yards within dribbling and passing. They also are 8th in the league for progressive passing. That is completed passes that move the ball towards the opponent's goal line at least 10 yards in the last 6 passes, including any passes in the penalty area. This does not include passes from the defending 40%. So they are doing a lot of dribbling and passing in the attacking third of the pitch. Again, third in progressive carries in the league. They have 69 more progressive carries than the Fire, and they have 198 more progressive passes than the Fire on the season. So they are really possession-based. They really know how to control the game. Now, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for the Fire, because the Fire, as much as they do like to build possession out of the back and maintain that possession and work those little 1-2 combos with their midfielders to turn that defense into offense, that the Fire are good in that transition game. The Fire are good in their transition game. They know how to counterattack as well, with Bamba and Zingernagel on the wings, with Selassie coming in as a sub off the bench, with Gutierrez pushing things forward, with Kuipers constantly making moves. That man does not stand still the moment he takes the pitch. So with all of that, the Fire are in a good spot to be able to counter LAFC. Now, will they want to rely on that at a home game? Well, at a Bridgeview home game, I don't know. It remains to be seen. They might want to take it to LAFC right off the bat, and maybe have LAFC get caught up in the hype of their new signing and forget about the game here. We know LAFC has struggled for long parts of the season. If the Fire can take it to them early, maybe they don't end up getting into any sort of possession rhythm. So it's going to be a very, very good matchup with LAFC's possession, especially Denny Bouanga carrying the ball forward, trying to beat defenders off the dribble one-on-one. That's going to be an exciting matchup to see him going up against the likes of Andrew Gutman, Leo Barroso, Jonathan Dean. Can Dean do to Bouanga what he did to Wilfred Zaha if Dean ends up getting in the match this weekend? Another thing we've got to point out going into this LAFC game is goalkeeping. LAFC has allowed 5. They're tied for the 5th best goals allowed, 28 goals allowed to the Fire's 40. So that is where they excel. They excel in defense relative to the rest of the league, at least when it comes to goals allowed. But what's interesting is their keeper's save percentage is in the bottom quarter of the league. LAFC has a save percentage of 67%, same as the Chicago Fire. I think technically 0.6. The Chicago Fire are better 0.6 by save percentage, but essentially both teams are at a 67% save percentage. So you'll see that LAFC isn't giving up a lot of goals. They're not giving up a lot of shots either. If you want to look at that statistic, the Galaxy have given up, let's see, shots on target against 119. That is good enough for 2, 4, 6, 8, ninth best in the league. Whereas the Fire have only given up, or the Fire have given up 134. I'm sorry, that's not. I filtered top down instead of bottom up. So LAFC are in the bottom third of shots allowed on target. But the Chicago Fire are even worse. The Chicago Fire have allowed the third most shots on target of any team. So you are going to see the opposing offenses get their attempts in this match. There could be goals in this match. The last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more on that offensive side, squad shooting. Whereas LAFC, let's see, have I already reviewed this stat? Whereas LAFC is putting 37% of their shots on target, the Fire are putting 41 of their shots on target. Both teams are averaging between 13 and 14 shots a game. They're very similar in their attack numbers here. The Fire have gotten 17 more shots off in total and 17 more shots on target in total, but the percentages similar, per 90, similar, things of that nature. So, like I said, this matchup is going to produce offense. It's going to produce a lot of shots, and hopefully the Chicago Fire will come out with a win down in Bridgeview. I like the Fire from a statistical standpoint. I like the Fire from an intangible standpoint. They had the last weekend off. They kind of got hopefully a little bit of home crowd buzz at the Meet the Players party this past weekend. I hope that the fans are going to turn out. Hopefully it's a great weather day down in Bridgeview and everyone can be there cheering them on. You know it's going to be a packed house because of the caliber of opponent as well as the rise of the Chicago Fire into the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. So I am going to say, on that pitch in Bridgeview, a rejuvenated Fire squad, an offensive-minded game. I'm picking the Fire to win this one. I want to say 3-1, but after everything I just talked about, I'm going to say 3-2. 3-2, Chicago Fire victory at home. Keep the point streak alive. Keep the playoff picture rolling. That is what I think is going to happen. Let me know what you think. You can write to me via email, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media at glasshousesoccer. Big thanks to John, who reached out to me via Facebook to comment on the Meet the Players party, as well as ask for my season ticket members' contact information there. So John, hopefully Maddie takes good care of you. Let me know how she does. She's been great for us. With that, I'm going to let you all enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and let's go Fire.